Currently, the Victorian borders are open if you're travelling from New South Wales and have passed all relevant immigration and biosecurity requirements as established by the federal government and New South Wales,
Yes.
then you are able to travel to Victoria. You do not need to quarantine for 14 days on arrival. This shows that this is not really the federal government's fault. It's not the fault of New South Wales, and this is your documentation that proves that Victoria's borders are open to people from New Zealand.
Yeah, and that website was updated at 8:30 last night. These people arrived at 5:30 on Friday night. So we are. If you and your network or any network want to criticise me for having accepted the fact that despite the fact we were asked, do you want to be in the bubble?
Premier, this is
we are
at odds
in
with
the
what
bubble.
you were saying on the weekend that this wouldn't happen again.
That is no.
You wanted to make sure that this wouldn't happen again.
Ultimately, we're in the bubble, whether we like it or not, and that's why the website was updated at 8:30 last night. So I don't understand the point you're making. The point you're making is completely wrong. We can't stop these people coming here unless, of course, the Prime Minister and Minister Tudge and whoever else has been wheeled out to apparently blame me for what happens at Sydney Airport, Perth Airport, Hobart Airport. You know, come on. The federal government's in charge of the borders. This bubble does apply to every part of Australia, it would seem. We're just acknowledging that fact, and that's why the website was updated not before 5:30 on Friday, but at 8:30 last night.
Premier, how is it that you didn't know that this was the case when Professor Sutton and Dr. Alan Cheng was at the meeting when it was discussed? Was that information just never passed on to you?
You need to understand, in fact I think you probably do, AHPPC are not a decision-making body. They provide advice to National Cabinet. National Cabinet didn't meet last Friday. The Prime Minister was in Queensland and the meeting was cancelled. Perhaps it would have been discussed at National Cabinet. I can't be certain of that. People turned up without us knowing. People turned up without the WA government knowing. People turned up, I assume, without the Tasmanian government knowing. These bubble arrangements were presented very clearly as just that, a bubble, and that if you wanted to be part of it, you could. We said we don't think we should be at this time. However, it seems we are in it. So we'll make the best of it. That's just the situation we find ourselves in, and that's why we updated the website at 8:30 last night, and that's why if people turn up today on any one of those 17 flights, we'll provide them with advice and support, and we'll make sure that they comply with all the rules as they relate to Victorians.
Just to pick you up on something you just said then, are you aware if a decision was to be made at the National Cabinet meeting on Friday regarding the travel bubble?
No, I don't believe so. Because there were letters that went back and forth between the Prime Minister and I well ahead of Friday, where we were asked, do you want to be in this? And we said no. Seriously, I just think it is completely unreasonable to be putting it to me that somehow it's my fault or the Victorian government's fault that when you're invited to participate in an arrangement and you say no, that somehow people turn up, not just in Victoria. This is not just a Victorian issue. They've turned up in Perth. They've turned up, I understand, in Hobart. That is not on the Victorian government or the Victorian Chief Health Officer or the Victorian Deputy Chief Health Officer.
Premier Alan Tudge says that there are emails from the Premier's own department expressing and authorising for these individuals to come to Victoria.
Well, then why was the Prime Minister writing to me then, asking me whether I wanted to be in it? If it's all down, if National Cabinet is in fact now a group of Chief Health Officers, if the leader of our nation and the leader of our state is not the Prime Minister and the Premier, but instead a group of health officials, one wonders why we've been writing letters back and forth. The key point here is we were asked, do you want to be part of it? We simply said, yes, at some point, not right now.
So there are no emails from your department that authorise this?
Well, no one in my department has the authority to do that, and I haven't bothered asking those questions, frankly. And if we can keep going round in circles, if you want to put it to me that somehow it is the fault of the Victorian government that people finished up turning up here from another country when we expressly said we didn't want to be part of it, as well as people turning up in Perth and Hobart, I don't think that's reasonable.
Can I just reconfirm from Friday night? Sorry, just to reconfirm from Friday night.
Yes.
You may have confirmed this over the weekend, but I want to reconfirm.
Sure.
Did you have the belief that you, under the DHS authorised powers or the Public Health and Wellbeing Act in Victoria, did you have the belief that Victoria could detain these travellers on Friday
No, we
night?
don't. We do not have the power on legal advice. We do not have the power to do that. The WA government, not just because their borders closed, but their powers of detention, if you like, are derived from their emergency management framework, not from their public health framework, as I'm briefed. So they're in a different place. They're in a different place.
So was there, though, at any time on Friday night, after you were, either before or after you were informed at 5:40 p.m, I understand that was about the rough timing, was there a belief that these people could have been detained at the airport? And
no, I don't believe so. And that would have been pretty tough, given that we didn't get their names and addresses, and then when we did, though, half of them were wrong until lunchtime the following day. Ultimately, this has happened. It is completely contrary to the arrangements that we entered into, but it would seem it's going to continue to happen. We can't really prevent it without closing the border, and I think that has so many different knock-on effects that it's not worth doing. But it is a bit rich for the federal government to be essentially blaming the Victorian government for these matters when exactly the same thing has happened in WA. I'm telling you, Mark McGowan did not know these people were coming until they arrived.
So
If that's the gold standard, then I think that I don't know about that.
Do you need those powers, though?
No, we just need this. We just need to know who's coming and when, and we need to speak to them, and we will, and we'll make sure they know all the rules. But you know, it was very, very challenging on Friday. You know, there's a lot of people who've got quite a bit. If I can finish, as Alan Tudge says, lots of things. It was a bit challenging Friday night because we didn't get the names of these people until about lunchtime Saturday, which I don't think you could call that gold standard. I don't know when Premier McGowan got the names and details of people. He probably needed them a bit less than us because he held them at the airport and they've now gone to a hotel. We don't want to have to do that. Ultimately, this bubble applies to the entire country, it would seem. And now we just have to change our settings because we had, I think, rightly assumed that when we were asked, do you want to be in it, and we said no, we wouldn't be. That's a pretty common sense position to take. Apparently that wasn't accurate, so now we've adjusted our website, not Friday night or Thursday or Wednesday, we adjusted it last night.
Alan Tudge says the first
Alan
meeting
Tudge says, what does Alan Tudge say?
He said that the first meeting occurred last Monday. This is the meeting of the Chief Health Officers and Chief Medical Officers from each jurisdiction, including the Commonwealths, and it was expressly discussed on Monday at this meeting that people would be arriving from New Zealand and they may well choose to travel onto another destination, and there was no objections raised.
Right,
so how is this their fault?
Well, because they're in charge of the borders and they're in charge of the bubble, and the bubble was supposed to be...
the opportunity for maybe Professor Sutton
okay,
to
so
raise
hang on,
the issue?
we can just take this out to the full extent. So apparently, the Commonwealth defence to these arrangements is that not just the Victorian Chief Health Officer and Deputy didn't raise a concern, neither did the WA, neither did the Tasmanian. Who else? I'm pretty sure, I don't know if the Queenslanders did. Like, ultimately, we're in this wonderful debate and discussion, and I'm sure we have many more important things to talk about, but we're in this debate and discussion because the Commonwealth Government stubbornly refused to accept that this is not what was signed up to. I accept it, we all accept it now, because that's what's happening. And short of closing the border, which I don't think would be a very good thing to do and is not something that the Prime Minister would support, you know, Mr Tudge can say whatever he likes. Ultimately, I think there's a pattern here, and it's not a pattern on behalf of the states. Mark, WA, no idea they were coming. Us, no idea they were coming. I haven't heard from Peter yet in terms of Tassie, but I don't think they had much of an idea they were coming either.
Remy, can I just